We are live. I'm going to wait a few seconds here while I make sure StreamYard and YouTube are talking to one another. Seems to be starting up. Come on. Not quite getting anything here, so let me try. All right. See if we're getting. For some reason, I'm having a little trouble with YouTube myself right now. Just hold on a few seconds here. There we go. All right, now we're all hooked up. So there we are. Welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. So there's that. Welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm your host, Ed Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. I want to thank everybody for stopping by. I was over at Saturday night at the Atheist listening in, and now I'm here. So welcome, everybody. Tonight we're going to ask the proverbial question, is the new Pope actually woke, or is he just Catholic? And does that really help the situation? So, and we're going to have Father Casey help us out. I haven't done anything with Father Casey probably in well over a year. So there's that. Just wanted to, before we get to going, there's a goal in the chat for super chats. Basically, we got 3 more super chats. There will be a hat reveal tonight. I've got 2 of them actually, so I put a second one in there. So there's that, and then if I get up to 13 tonight, I'll put the link of StreamYard in the description. I'll stay on another hour and chat with anybody who wants to chat live at that point, but that's the goal. Just so some of you know, there is a Earl. I Killed Earl sent me a emoji, or I don't know if she meant it to be an emoji, but this is her first piece of artwork because we asked her to switch to Catholics. And seeing it's an appropriate theme for tonight, we're gonna. This is her rendition, the tomato Pope emoji. So that's kind of where we're going. I'm sure we'll have fangs in here somewhere with the pointy teeth. We'll see. Well, so there's that. But yeah, that's her preliminary artwork. I thought it was great. I figured everybody would love this one, so we still have that. It is right now a temporary emoji. I don't know if we'll keep it, and I'm fairly certain Earl would want to work on it if it's going to be an emoji, so it's a little bit more visible. So, but this is the first piece of artwork, and because we're talking about the Pope, and I'm assuming the Pope is indeed Catholic, we figured the tomato Pope would be a good one. So there's that one. Let's see who we got for a remote. Oh, who is here? Let's see. I think Tripoli was here. Michael Wolf was here, but I don't know if he's here now. He came by earlier, dropped something into the chat. Cranky Elder God is here. I know Triple E is here actually, so there's that. Martin is here. Kyle is here. Doing good. Martin has showed up. Ashera is here. There's that. Shaka is here. Shano TV is here. Yeah, I always have trouble making out. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. So that's one. Martin. Okay. Thank you, Martin. That's 2. So, all right. Well, it looks like we will have a hat reveal then for sure. So another one if I get 7 more. So there'll be 2 of them. I'll put that on here in a little bit when I get started. So, because I'll be off to the side. But tonight I was, debating, because one of the first things that was said about the Pope, that he was too woke, and that came from the Christian nationalists here in my country. So there was that aspect of it. And I was thinking about it, who would be the expert on Catholicism that would be a little bit more open to analyzing this criticism of the new Pope. What is the most notorious or wonderful wonderful person to go to? And it immediately came to my brain that I haven't looked at Father Casey's stuff in like at least 6 months. I haven't done a reaction to him in a long time. So, and I thought, I wonder if Father Casey has been active on the Pope situation, because, it is kind of his bag. And sure enough, but yeah, he did do a video on whether the Pope is woke or Catholic, or just a Catholic. And I said, okay, this is perfect. I haven't done a video in a while because I'm struggling with some stuff. So that's why I've been live streaming, because it's a little bit easier to do a live stream. But I've got a video in the works. I'm hoping to get 2 videos out a week. So yeah, Father Casey. So, but Father Casey did do a couple of videos on the popes. He did a video on the Pope's passing, the old one, and then he did this one about 4 days ago. So, so it's very, very interesting to see what a Catholic might have to say about this. Now, I have to admit that my thoughts on woke are interesting, because I've never really been given a decent definition. And in this video, Father Casey attempts to, I don't know if his information is accurate, but he attempts to tell where the idea came from and how he feels about it. But most of the time I've had this discussion where somebody like says something's too woke, it comes out like this. Somebody will tell me that everything's too woke and too this and too that. And I'll ask, well, what's your definition of woke? And well, it's stuff I don't like. And that tends to be kind of most of my conversations about woke. As somebody who's interested in social sciences, definitions are important, and I just don't have that. So there's that. Thank Triple E. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up Casey here, and I'm going to stop him, and he's muted already. So remember this guy? I'm sure a lot of people remember him from, it might be Martin, I don't know. See, that's my problem as a social scientist of trying to figure out what definitions are, what it is that people are against and for. And this seems to be one of those things that I'm not really sure. So Father Casey did this video about 4 days ago, where he he is coming out, basically trying to defend the Pope. He is a priest. So, but it's interesting that the right-leaning Christian nationalists in my country, their immediate reaction to the new Pope was that he's too woke. And it's very interesting to see what's that. Let's see. I watched Destiny interview some MAGA influencer turned on Trump after inauguration. Both of them argued that they pushed empathy out of the political spaces, and now they're paying for it. Yes, I would agree with that. One of the things that Casey is going to do here is he's like, if there's a positive to this video, is Casey is going to push the compassion narrative a lot with Catholicism, which, okay, I could argue that that's not consistent. But yeah, so there's that. But yes, one of the backlashes I think is like when I heard Musk say that empathy was a human weakness, that it's going to be the downfall of our civilization if we're too have too much compassion. I'm like, okay, all right. And that's kind of where I know a lot of my Republican friends did not like that at all because they're more of a Bush compassionate conservatism kind of people, and they believe that. So yeah, the love your neighbor part is still part of their creed. They don't really care who their neighbors are. So it's why I tell everybody, understand that the problem with like a two-party system is you're not going to get the character of everybody who votes one way or the other because there's not a lot of options. So we'll see what happens here. But let's see what Father Casey's been up to. He disappeared for like 3 months and then he came back, and he hasn't done very many videos. But since one Pope's death and the Pope's the other one, so is the Pope woke or is he just Catholic? Is his question.
Habemus Papam. We have a Pope, and he's American. Around the world Thursday, people celebrated what most thought would never happen. The conclave chose an American, a Chicago-born man named Robert Prevost, to be the successor of Peter in Rome. It was a jubilant moment, something that united the country in patriotic pride for about 5 minutes.
I don't know how you claim that this is an American Pope if you won't even speak in his native tongue.
Conservatives are already complaining that this Pope is too woke.
Some other people are calling him the woke Pope.
But many people are asking, is he based or is he woke? And so far, there's a little bit of evidence that he may be woke.
The new Pope had...
Okay, so yeah, Casey's actually probably right here. Yeah, it lasted all of like 4 or 5 minutes. I think the president's spiritual advisor tweeted that he was too woke. Yeah, I agree with you. I think people love. My favorite thing is loving people in the world, and it's definitely. But yeah, it lasted. I would say about, I don't know, a few minutes. But I remember the president's spiritual advisor, who is a very conservative Christian, tweeted out that this Pope was too woke. I'm still got problems with the Pope. Okay, so yeah, it's Beanie Boy. Actually, I have reacted, I think, to Father Casey a couple times because he's actually done videos towards atheists, and so I reacted to what he said. I think it is the same spiritual advisor that she's a woman. That's kind of she's way out there. So, but she tweeted out that she felt the Pope was too woke. Yeah, even to that religion. Yeah, I would argue, Cranky, that you might have a valid point. See, because Christianity, they do have some stuff that I would like. Jesus says a few things that on the surface, I would say, okay, yeah, valid. But every religion says that kind of thing. And one of them is human compassion, love your neighbor as yourself kind of stuff. But that's in every religion. And I would not even consider that a religious statement. I think it's a secular one. And so Father Casey is going to try to make the case that Catholic equals Christian and thus equals compassion, but I'm not sure he's going to be successful. Yeah, she was the one speaking in tongues about African angels or something. Yes, she was. Yes, the same one. Yeah, context Jesus, yes. Surface Jesus. Hey, that's nice. Context Jesus, yes. That's the problem with Jesus. When I get to my questionable witnesses series, it's gonna, when we start getting into his teachings, I'll be like, is that really good stuff? So, hey, Katie, good to see you. Welcome. All right, well, let's see where he goes with this. So he's right. Lasted about 4 minutes. Everyone's happy. Americans were proud, patriotic, and then he's too woke. So the Pope becomes too woke. So let's see what Casey has to say.
Barely exited the Vatican balcony after his introduction and blessing, and people in the United States were already freaking out, calling him a liberal, a globalist Marxist, and of course, woke. Can I just say, because I know most people will not watch to the end of this video to see me explain everything, so let's just get to the point right at the beginning. If you're using the word woke in the year of 2025 at all for any reason, let alone to describe the Pope, I think you might have your priorities mixed up. While the term used to be an important rallying cry for justice among the Black community, today it is nothing more than a pejorative dog whistle, a catch-all term meant to mock and dismiss progressive ideas as out of touch and dangerous. If you're still using the term in 2025, just please stop.
Okay, is he valid there? I don't know my history of the woke term as well as I would like. I've watched this video once, but is that valid? Like that somehow it got co-opted into something else? He's going to make that case in his first point for Pope Leo the 14th not being woke. He's going to make that. Yeah. Okay. So a broken clock is right. So he's right about that. Okay. Like because I seem to remember that Black Americans came up with this term woke about the real situation that people were in. So I actually kind of agree with him if that's the case, because if you're using it as a derogatory term, you're not using it as the way it was initially created to be. I think it predates that. He's going to make the case that the term woke actually predates even that, the BLM movement. So is he valid on that? Yeah, that's kind of what my question was too. Co-opted into something nasty. Okay. And Goodman 4 agrees as well. So, okay. So he's going to make 3 points about the Pope being woke. And the first one is going into the history of the term. So we'll see a little bit more fuller of that later, but let's see what happens.
If you're using it to describe the Pope, we have a lot to cover. First, I just think it's important that everyone understand where the idea of woke came from and how is yet another example of how much of Black culture has been co-opted and stigmatized over the years. Second, in order to understand why the Pope cares about things that would lead people to call him woke, we need to look at his choice of names, Leo the 14th. In the tradition of the Church, the name a Pope chooses serves as a mission statement, signifying what his papacy is about. His predecessor, Leo XIII, founded modern social justice initiatives, criticized American culture, and was a diplomat to the world. And finally, we'll look at Pope Leo XIV himself, his background, things he's said and done, and what's ahead of him, to see how woke he really is.
Okay, so that's the outline that Casey's going to use. He wants to talk about the origin of what woke means. He then wants to talk about the predecessor to Leo XIV, which is actually Leo XIII. And then he wants to talk about Leo XIV himself. So it's nice. Casey always does a pretty good job of giving you an outline. He either says it or so there's that. Let's see. I've always understood woke as a reference to intersexual social. That's how the right wing uses the word from what I understand. Originated as for white people who are coming to or did recognize the systematic struggle for the POC. At least my Tumblr says that's what it was. Okay, there you go. Oh, you might have asked. Oh, it was a statement. Okay, yeah, okay, so he is valid. Okay, well, let's see. He's going to give a more fuller explanation in part one, and we'll see if we agree with him at the end.
While the word woke only entered the popular lexicon in the 2010s, ultimately coming to serve as a pejorative term to disparage leftist and progressive movements, its use in the Black community goes back to at least the 1920s, where it had a very different connotation. In 1923, Jamaican activist Marcus Garvey, also known as the Black Moses, gave a rousing speech in which he said, "Wake up, Ethiopia, wake up, Africa. Let us work towards one glorious end of a free, redeemed, and mighty nation. Let Africa be a bright star among the constellation of nations." At the time, he felt that many people ignored the injustices that were happening to Black people across America and around the world. They saw it, they heard it, but they did nothing about it. It was as if they were asleep. In order for justice to come, they needed to wake up. The image was a powerful one, and over the next 80 years served as a rallying cry in the black community to inspire resistance against racism. In 1938, the phrase "stay woke" was included in a song about the Scottsboro Boys, retelling the story of 9 black teenagers who were wrongfully imprisoned and almost executed for a crime they didn't commit. In 1940,
Okay, so I want to interrupt there. So what he's saying is it goes way, way back, like this idea of being asleep and then waking up to the social injustices around you. Okay, so the idea of being woke is kind of like being asleep to what's going on, and then all of a sudden you're awake. So, yeah, but Sean, I'm not really dealing with that topic, but I would say this. If that's so, Jesus needs to come and appear, because otherwise it's just a story as far as I can tell. Yeah, it is interesting to me, though. It is that the idea was, hey, this is our, we're waking up to the social injustices to various peoples around the world, and it has its origin in the, but yeah, it's one of those things where somebody created something and then it got co-opted for something else. Yeah, I mean, we could do Gandalf too. Other characters of fiction. Yeah, I'm going to need I would want to see some studies and citations on that. I mean, he's citing a quote, and quote mining is always something I despise, because usually what happens is they take it out of context, and it doesn't matter whether it's creationists or something like that or anybody. But yeah, I would want to see whether or not the term goes back that far. So there's that.
Negro mine workers fighting for their rights against discriminatory pay wrote, "We were asleep, but we will stay woke from now on." And in 1962, William Melville Kelly wrote an article for the New York Times entitled, "If you're woke, you dig it." For nearly a century, the term was something to be proud of, to signify that one was not being placated, not being anesthetized, that they were aware of the injustice of the world and they would not go quietly. There could be no sleeping in a time like this. I think it's important to note that up until around 2017, there was nothing about being woke that went against church teaching.
Okay, so basically he's taking the stance that the origin of the term woke was really like you were asleep once upon a time about the social injustices, and now you're awake, and so you're woke. So if you're woke, you get it. And so, I have noticed that this term is kind of a recent addition to the social lexicon, and it has its meaning changed. And so that's one of my, so there's that. Oh. Things are good. It's called fake woke. Okay. Why are Catholics so prescribing political terms on a faith leader? Are you guys Jesus focused or nation focused? I don't know. I'm very interested as somebody with a political science degree in what social movements do and trying to get accurate assessment of them. So, but I'm not a Catholic. I'm certainly an atheist, but Father Casey is a Catholic, and I've reacted to him before. And I'm just wondering if his version of history doesn't seem derogatory to the idea of woke. And he's about to kind of say that its meaning got changed like in the middle 2000 teens, which I would agree with. I don't remember it being used that much before that. So I think there's that. He should stick to making beer. I don't know. He's actually said one thing that I've agreed with. So, but somebody made, broken clock analogies. So, I mean, yeah. So.
In fact, as we'll see in section 2, the fight for fair treatment goes hand in hand with the gospel and the work of the church. Unfortunately, like so many things that originate from black culture, in 2017, the term had become popularized and was quickly distorted. No longer a rallying cry for those seeking justice, it was weaponized by some on the right as a sarcastic, sneering term to dismiss anything related to progressive politics, real or imagined. Reverse racism, socialism, gay marriage, furries in schools, open borders with no police officers, teachers convincing children to...
Dog, I was a Pentecostal. Experience doesn't prove anything. Okay, I can literally, I hate to break this up, but, when theists come here, I kind of deal with them as they come up, but your experience doesn't even really prove it you. Are you interpreting your experience correctly? Everybody has experience. I was a former Pentecostal. I had tons of experiences that were quote unquote with God. And now I realize it's just psychological manipulation. So it doesn't prove you know anything. My apologetics professor would rip you apart from Bible college. He would say, so what? You have an experience. Buddhists have an experience. Islamic people have an experience. A lot of people have experiences. And NDEs don't prove anything, as Martin points out. Experiences are just your brain, and we have a lot of them, and some of them are reality and some of them are not. And that's why we do things to make sure beyond our experiences. So
have sex change operations. Lump it all together. The craziest things you can make up with legitimate concerns for a just society, call it woke, and you have a boogeyman for everyone to fear. Crazy, out of touch, and absolutely dangerous.
Okay, so the assertion here by Casey is that about the middle 20 teens or so, people began to redefine the term, and it became weaponized as a term by the right against the left. And it's definitely a weaponized term that the right uses, and particularly right-leaning Christian nationalists definitely use it to kind of demonize everything on the left. Anything that looks weird, from transgender to LGBTQ to whatever, they kind of do. So there's that. There's that. So I would say, in a certain sense, that's kind of when I started noticing the term being used that way. So he's kind of right on there. And I've always felt more in tune with nature. I always had to be close to God. By that logic, my emotions should make me believe in nature worship. Yes. That's the problem with emotions and experiential arguments. Is my apologetics professor says your experience proves nothing to anybody else. Okay, because other people have different experiences. Like I have many atheists who come to this channel who have never had a religious experience, and they could say that not having a religious experience means that their atheism is true. So it's not a valid piece of evidence. It's not good evidence. So. Yeah, I think so. It's like he's going to talk about Leo the 13th. Leo the 13th did push back not only against capitalism, but he also pushed back against socialism too. He was very much kind of a weirdo there. So, but he's going to talk about that in a minute. I thought that was, yeah, I mean, it could be your brain lying to you. But yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't have anything to do with math. You present evidence. I don't agree with your evidence. It's bad evidence. Sorry. The mathematical argument, that does. Yeah, I'm with Triple E. So what? Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Mathematics doesn't really prove anything. It's used to prove things, but atheism is the product of, you tell me all the evidence for the existence of Zeus, and I say that's not convincing, I don't believe you. You tell me all the evidence for the existence of Vishnu, and I say that's not convincing, it's bad evidence, I don't believe you. And I do that with every single god, all of them that is presented to me. But that's where atheism comes from. It's a misnomer that an atheist doesn't have to make a claim. A photograph, well, I'll be honest, I'd have to put it through an analyst machine to make sure it has been altered.
This is what people mean when they call something or someone woke today. This is what people mean when they call the Pope woke today. What do we make of that?
Okay, so what he's saying is we can't use the old definition of what people meant when they used woke. And I would agree with that. It's definitely a modern defining thing by the right to disparage the left. So what do we mean? So what do we mean? Well, I mean, you're welcome to do any paragraph. You can write anything you want, Sean. I'm just telling you that I was a Christian for 40 years. I was a pastor for 20. I've got degrees in biblical studies and theological studies. I used to do apologetics. So, yeah, what do you got that I haven't already seen? So, I mean, you're welcome, but it doesn't. It's not. I mean, I've had so many Christian religious experiences, but it doesn't prove anything to me now. So, good luck.
The biggest problem I think the Catholic Church faces in this environment, why both Francis and Leo have been called woke, is because most people do not understand the history of the Church. By taking the name Leo XIV, pointing directly to the legacy of Leo XIII, I believe our new Pope is reminding the world of three important points. The first is the social doctrine of the Church. In 1891, Pope Leo XIII wrote one of the most consequential documents in Church history, Rerum Novarum, of New Things. Written in a time of incredible change, Leo XIII witnessed arguably the most tumultuous time in human history as the world went from an agrarian society to an industrial one. The entire social order was overturned in a matter of decades. Electricity, cars, radios, factories, light bulbs, telephones. Imagine what life would have looked like in 1850 compared to even 1900, not even a full lifetime away. There was so much change, so much growth, and so many people left behind while the richest people in human history rose to power. And so in his
Okay. Very accurate assessment of how technology that was very rapidly advancing changed society. If you do look at that period from 1850 to 1900, you're talking a massive amount of technological change. And so religions had to address that. And the Catholic Church was and Pope Leo XIII was the guy that kind of did that. But I would also say that when you look at that time period, there was also a great rise in an understanding of science as well. And the scientific understanding of the universe began to replace the religious one. And a lot of religions reacted very strongly to that. It's just kind of one of those things where technology is changing and religion has to adapt. And Leo XIII is one of those guys that was reacting to that as a religious leader of his time. Now, Leo XIII is a very interesting pope. I tried to find any dirt on him, and other than he maintained the doctrines of the Catholic Church, such as the Jews were not to be trusted, and a few other things. He tends to be a guy that cries for social justice, tries to be very diplomatic and creating peace agreements, not always successful. So there's that aspect of it. So I don't know that I have anything bad to say about him other than he was a Catholic and he was a pope, and there's a system there of elitism in the Catholic Church that I don't think is that way. Let's see, my son is a Christian, and we have a lot of talks about science. And I told him the history behind the church funding scientific discovery in the past versus them destroying it now. Yes, it's interesting that the guy. What's often funny to me is creationists will make fun of the Big Bang Theory. And it's like, you do realize a Catholic priest came up with that, right? Okay, he was a believer. And later on now, it's like they're trying to push back against science because it fills the gaps that God used to have. And, God used to be that catch-all thing it's just illogical. It doesn't prove, just because we don't have an answer doesn't mean God fits there, but got to prove that. Trying to understand what after science pointed toward no creator, they put the brakes on things. Yes. So yes, math is universal in the same religious experience is not. Yes. It's a put down. Yeah, Big Bang is kind of a put down. It was a critic that gave it that name, but it's not really accurate. But yeah, it's more of I would describe it as the expansion of the existing universe that we know. But yeah, that's more of an accurate thing. But so we have Pope the 13th, Leo the 13th, he's right about the Catholic popes taking names of predecessors as like a mission statement of what they're going to be about. And I don't think this guy choosing Leo was accidental. So he's kind of saying he's going to be kind of the same type of pope, basically. So, but let's see what Casey is going to drive at here.
Leo denounced unrestricted capitalism and socialism alike, demanding fair and living wages for all workers, safe working conditions, and the rights of workers to unionize. Far removed from the politics of our day, these were not woke ideas, but grounded in the fundamental principles of the gospel and church teaching: the dignity of the human person, need to uphold the common good, and respect for subsidiarity. The document was neither a break from previous church teaching, nor was it a singular blip on the screen. In the 130 years since it was published, popes have upheld and added to these teachings, calling for societies to be just and equitable, upholding the dignity of the poor, the outcast, and the refugee. Pope Francis.
Okay, so basically Leo the 13th was like, it's okay that we have workers and bosses, but, we should create safe conditions for workers. Yeah, valid. But upholding the poor, the migrant. Yeah, that's going to be, to some, I guess that's going to be a little bit woke, human dignity, that sort of thing. But yes, I think, what he's saying is Leo the 13th was kind of, he did, I read some things about him, and he did kind of push back on both capitalism and socialism. So he said extreme forms of either always seem to lead to evil. So appealing to anachronisms, leave it to it. Yeah, of course. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, he's appealing to an old pope. Leo the 13th is an interesting character. He did a lot. He was the first pope to be filmed and photographed, I believe, or he might not have been the first to be photographed, but he's the first one to be filmed, like with actual film. So, and might be the oldest living person filmed at the time, because he was born in like 1810. So, yes, being woke, advocating for human rights. Yes. Yeah, because that's kind of what he did. Was he going to be for everybody's human rights or certain behaviors? Yeah, and then you have Francis here, who definitely was very, because he was Latin American, definitely pro migrants, definitely pro Latin American, the poor, things like that. And of course, that's going to get you classified as woke, because we can't have compassion or things like that, or treat people like human beings. So, it's really disturbing where this anti-woke stuff sometimes goes. I never really get a good definition from conservatives that use it, but it seems to be, like I said before, anything that I don't like is woke. So.
Was no more woke when he called for the welcoming of migrants than Benedict XVI was when he called for the redistribution of wealth, or when John Paul II called for the end of the death penalty, or when Paul VI called for solidarity with struggling third world countries.
Yeah, I mean, every Catholic pope has had their social justice issue. Very rarely does a pope just hold on to, just Catholic dogma and doctrine issues. They always have some sort of social justice. Yes, loving your neighbor. Yeah, could be woke. I should do a video of all the woke things that Jesus said, so and see what happens. Maybe Martin, social justice popes. But yeah, they're like John Paul II was a big, heavy one against capital punishment. Like, he wanted to end the death penalty, and he really crusaded for that. Francis is definitely pro-migrant, being from Latin America. You had, solidarity with third world countries from other popes. Like every pope has had their social justice thing, at least in the modern era. So this one is no exception. Leo the 13th was no exception to that, based on what I've read.
Teachings like this are not woke, they're just the gospel, finding their foundation in Leo the 13th, who found his foundation in St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Augustine, and of course, Jesus himself. So
Okay. I gotta push back on that. I'm not really sure that the Catholic Church is still with Jesus that much. Okay. As a former Protestant, I would have pushed back against that statement that the Catholic Church lost its way somewhere around St. Augustine and slowly drifted away. And that's why the Protestant Reformation became necessary to correct that. Now, as an atheist, I would say I don't really care what St. Augustine said. He was kind of a weirdo in his own right. Thomas Aquinas is the best philosopher they've had, and they haven't had a decent one in years, and he is completely wrong about a lot of things about the nature of the universe. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not, I push the doubt button for me on this one of whether or not that's connected back to Jesus. So it's there. It's weird that I'm getting oddly emotional about some sort of religious foundation doing any humanistic actions. No, it's not weird. It's just odd. It's just odd. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Christianity does have a tradition of human rights activism, but often it's with the idea of proselytizing with it. Okay, they don't know how to do human rights just for the sake of human rights. They've got to do it for the sake of the gospel. Like he's indicating this is the core of the gospel. As a Protestant, I would have said the same thing, that part of my evangelistic efforts would have been like, hey, let's do this because then we can preach the gospel more. So it's like, does the Pope believe? I have no idea if he believes Paul existed. Yeah, I mean, if he said indoctrination is wrong, then okay, fair enough. I don't have a problem with the Catholics as long as they don't push their agenda on me. Okay, like for a long time, the Catholic Church had a very strong statement against atheists, and I don't know if they still have that. So it's, they didn't get rid of their anti-Semitism until 1966. So it's like the modern Catholic Church is kind of trying to change its image to be a little bit more conforming to opinions around it, but also at the same time, there are certain things that are not changing. And Casey's going to cover those in this video. So pull whale weights. Okay. Every once in a while, whales. Yeah, it's the problem I have with it is they always still peddle their religion. They can't just do human rights things because it's the right thing to do as human beings. And that's always been my problem with religious organizations. And now that I'm out of that, I can see how everything was always about the mission of the church. It wasn't just about doing good things for good people. It was about reaching their souls for Jesus. And I think that's been my problem. So did work with Mustache Man, yes. Yeah, there you go. It's okay. It's all right. Nobody's going to get after you. Not around here. I mean, I'm autistic, so shedding tears is difficult. But when it happens, it's usually gushers. So I feel you. So
that's a huge point that needs to be repeated over and over again. And I've made plenty of videos on the social teaching of the church if you're interested in more. But
yes, and I would have made a counter. I think I've actually made counter to some of the social teachings of the church where I'm like, yeah, that's not really all that good. So, so there's that. Yeah, if they could only change where they put their peckers, yes, it's an issue. That's more. It's funny because Paul and Augustine disagree with each other about that, and yet they side with Augustine instead of Paul. So, well, I always made that point as a Protestant.
It's not the only contribution of Leo XIII that gives us some insight into the new pope. Leo XIII was the pope who condemned the heresy he called Americanism. In his encyclical Wide Expanse of the Ocean, Leo looks from his home in Italy across the ocean to the United States, and he has a few things to say. On the one hand, he admired how the Catholic faith flourished in America despite the many anti-Catholic attacks at the time, building parishes, schools, universities, hospitals, and institutions. One day, he thought, that little nation would have incredible faith to be proud of. And yet, his real reason for writing was to warn the American church. There was something very deadly in that land that risked ruining the faith. He had seen how the wider society was fiercely individualistic, secular, and liberal in the classical.
Okay, there it is. Yes, Leo XIII, my problem with him was he did condemn individualism. He condemned, being secular, not necessarily having a religion, that you could do good things without it. He did condemn a lot of things like liberal in the more classic sense of the word, being, more open to getting rid of religious influences. So it's kind of like, it's kind of, this is where Pope Leo the 13th kind of loses me, because I think all those things are not necessarily evil. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh, I know, I know that the current Pope isn't anti-Semitic, but like Leo the 13th, the one that's being talked about, he was around when that doctrine was in place and did nothing about it, as far as I can tell. So there's that. But yeah, I'm trying to be fair here, because a lot of the current later popes, I actually like some of the stuff they do. I just don't think you need the religious part of it to do all of it. Okay, I just don't think I need that. So, and I do believe indulgences are still there. So buying your way to heaven is still a thing. So there's that. But yes.
Sense of the term. It was a people that acted independently from the rest of the world, ruling not by principle or authority, not by divine or natural law, but by...
Yes, principle or authority, divine or natural law. I'm going to say this. I'm not sure secularists completely throw away the idea of natural law, so I would disagree with him there. But divine authority, yeah, we could throw that right out. Daddy says so is morally the equivalent of a 3 to 5 year old. It's been my pushback as an atheist against the moral argument for God. Is, to me, it's like, oh, so we have to have this childish notion that we have to have God be our moral authority. Daddy has to say so, but that's a toddler, just somebody just beyond a toddler age talking to their brothers and sisters. Mom, dad said so. That's what makes it right. And real moral discussions have to get past the authority issue. And so this is where Pope Leo the 13th and myself start to part company, because divine right theory has led to some of the biggest atrocities too, because Daddy says so has led to genocides and things like that. So I just don't have that kind of notion with him. And I think this is where secularism started. The Catholics and secularism still butt heads, because they still there's a very authoritative structure to the Catholic Church, and most secularists reject that. Let's bring in other people than other than the ruling class, like the Pope, because the Pope is a ruling class. So are the cardinals, so are the bishops. The whole bishopric thing is an authoritative structure. And so that's what it backs up with God. So yes. So there's that. So the cause of math, human beings created as a language to describe things. It's the closest thing we have to a universal language that we have created ourselves. There's no notion of God creating math. There's an email in my channel link. You're more than welcome to send it to me. But I'm going to tell you right now, Sean, if it's an experiential argument, I'll dismiss it, because I dismissed him as a Christian. So for many of the same reasons that any religion can have an experiential argument.
Popular consensus. There was a worry more than 100 years ago that it was a land more concerned with its own national politics than the teachings of the church, quick to soften, even discard the gospel for more modern sensibilities.
If by modern sensibilities you mean getting rid of this authoritative idea that a small group of people or an individual has more right to rule a bunch of other individuals, then yes, let's get rid of that shit. On what basis do you say that you have the right to tell other people what to do? I mean, basically, the church has not the Catholic Church hasn't really been pro-democracy. Let's be honest. It has democratic elements, but it doesn't like it when those things happen, when democratic actions happen, when other people have their voice and their power. the Catholic Church has been known to step on that. So let's just be fair there. So I don't know. There's some very liberal Episcopalians, Viola. But with that, hey, Alex, good to see you. All right.
Again, when Pope Francis said in 2023 that the U.S. Church had a very strong, organized, reactionary attitude, this was not him being woke, anti-American, or anti-Trump. This was him continuing the tradition of popes before him. Leo XIII saw it first, and he called it out. But there's one more thing we can learn from Leo, because he's able to write this letter in the first place because he has credibility as a bridge builder around the world, as an extraordinary diplomat. Much like the economic landscape, the political landscape changed drastically in his time as Pope, as many nations shifted away from monarchs, and countries like Italy and Germany unified as nations. Leo was an instrumental piece in these developments, brokering deals between Germany and Spain, improving relations with France, Russia, Switzerland, and Britain, and was able to unify the church across fractured lines, modeling prudence and patience. At no point.
Okay. True. One of the things that Leo XIII had a great deal of strength was his diplomatic pull. He definitely used the Vatican as a diplomatic organization to unify countries, to broker peace deals. There is an argument politically that after his death, a lot of the glue that held Europe in peace did disappear. So I'll give him credit for that, that he was one of those pieces that was keeping the world from fighting each other. And, he brokered a lot of deals. So I will give him props for that. When he did leave, it wasn't too long after that World War I broke out. So it could be argued that a lot of his peace deals, but then again, he was responsible for the unification of Germany, and so the unification of Germany becomes a problem for a bit. So I'm all respect. I know Michael Wolff was a German, and so I'm not being disrespectful, but there's definitely some sense where I would say that he was a very good diplomat and used the Vatican to push peace deals. So, and I'll give him considered that. Well, seeing I don't believe that there's anything to be saved from, I don't really feel that I mean, if I lose my salvation, doesn't that kind of condemn me for eternity? That seems to be a kind of a shit deal. I mean, don't get me wrong, Scientology will make your life miserable, and Islam will probably kill you in the here and now, but you're still going to kill me in the afterlife and burn me forever, right? So yeah, I'm not sure that's a better deal. It's the afterlife beliefs of most Christians that still kill me. So yeah. Let's see, watching the conclave the other day, didn't realize there's so much of the Catholic Church seems to go on forever and so many different views. Yes, they do. There's definitely traditionalists that don't like the new Pope. You'll probably see that at some point in the future. So,
Did Leo XIII downplay the importance of the Catholic Church or apologize for the faith? But he also didn't flaunt its power or make unreasonable demands either. His goal was not to gain more power, it was to bring peace throughout the world. The ultimate goal is always peace. Every life is sacred. Again, this is...
Makes me wonder if religious institutions are begrudgingly necessary. Like, is it a necessary evil like the government is a necessary evil, as many of the founding fathers would have said? I don't think so. I think what you need is organizations that pull people together to be humanitarian. And there are plenty of secular organizations that do that. I think one of the great myths that a lot of people say is religion does a lot of good, but like 60% of charitable organizations are secular. They have no religious affiliation. So there's a lot of non-religious work that gets done. It just doesn't get publicized. I mean, Christopher Hitchens said it, all these people like run to their good works, but it has nothing to do with the question of whether God exists or not. Okay. So it's like, it's time wasting, as he said it, because there was plenty of secular organizations back then and to this day that did the same. So you don't necessarily have to have a church to do that, just an organization. So it's never been a necessity. It's just something that has happened. So I guess that's kind of it. Other than I end up going to hell. I mean, and also I'd like to point out that that kind of leads to the point I have about religion and why I'm an anti-theist. And one of the biggest reasons is it reinforces this, what I would call prideful tribalism, where I'm a Catholic, so therefore I'm going to heaven and I'm part of the true church. And then you can pat yourself on the back about that. And God may not even be real. So, it's like, yeah, okay. Yes. One of my favorite ones. Yeah, I mean, but I think we're already doing it, Ashra. I think that the problem is like Doctors Without Borders, there's a whole ton. Like people look at the American Red Cross. The Red Cross isn't a religious organization. Okay, it really isn't. It benefits a lot from religious organizations, but it really isn't. It's a secular organization. Yes, they're definitely more effective organizations than the papacy. So, but yeah, Casey is making the point that this guy did his own individual. He used the power of the church in an effective way, but I would say there's also things that he could have done that he didn't bother with. And so maybe the timing's bad. I get it. Political timing is important. But yeah, so we'll see. But he's going to get on to Pope Leo the 14th himself. So.
Not woke. This is the gospel. Is Leo the 13th showing what it means to be a principled world leader, seeking the best for everyone, not just Catholics?
Because the reason why I care about whether people pat them in pride about imaginary characters is this: they have a tendency then to look down at people that don't share those views. Like people outside your Catholic tribe, how do you view them? Do you see them as just as good as you, or do they still need something? Because based on your own religious faith, you would have to say that they need to become Catholic, they need to become part of the true church, or they're lesser than you. Okay, that's the problem with all religions, is like there's always this attitude: if you don't find the right one, if you're not in my religion with me, then you're a lesser than. And I'm sorry, I think religion has this inherently dehumanizing element to it. Okay, where I can say I found the truth and everybody else that isn't like me hasn't found the truth. And that's the problem. Okay, that's why I'm an anti-theist, because that's the key cardinal problem, but there's many, many more. Dumping money into something that doesn't really exist. That's kind of a bad one for me. There's a bunch. I could probably do a video of I'm working on a script. I've been working on a script for a while for a video about how religion does damage to us every single day and how it does so. And that's one of the things it does, is it creates this false sense of pride that I'm part of the right religion and everybody else is wrong. So that's kind of the thing about that. So.
And so is with all this said, that we return now to our new Pope, Leo the 14th, with the original question at hand. Is he a woke Pope? Here's a man who spent much of his life as a missionary and then bishop in Peru, serving those who are among the poorest in the world. He was known to be a man of the people, always having time for everyone who needed him, available on the street.
It's the religion that teaches that, though. It's the one that says if you're Catholic, you're part of the true church, and everybody else is part of the false church by implication. That's tribalism. The individual, I always love how religions like to get away from their teachings when somebody does something bad in the name of the religion, or somebody engages in a downplaying personality. But the fact is, your religion does teach you that you're better than everybody else, okay? Because you found the true church and the true religion, and everybody else is in a false religion and doesn't have the truth. Sorry, at that point, it doesn't help your case, because now you're looking down at everybody else that isn't part of that. There's something deficient in everybody who is not like you, and that's inherently religious. Sorry, but I don't know. I hate to break the news to you, but religious dads abandon their mothers too, abandon the mothers of their kids too. I mean, it's like, I don't see how religion stops that problem. Okay, you can, that's an issue of personalities. There are plenty of people that are religious that leave their spouses as well. I mean, my father's father, my grandfather, my biological grandfather left his wife and left her with 3 kids, and he was reportedly a religious man. So, and he ended up fathering like 20 kids from 6, 7 different women in his life as a traveling salesman. So the idea that that's religion stops that problem. I know people who have gotten better at becoming atheists. So, I mean, if people left Islam, would they become better people? I mean, the fact is religion keeps a lot of these ideas running. And that's why I'm an anti-theist, because it's like, no, religion causes far more problems than it solves. Okay. I mean, but it doesn't matter. It's the nature of the religious beast. Okay. Your new pope may say that, but if I am an atheist, where am I going? Who am I to you? I'm somebody who needs to find the Catholic Church. And if I don't find the Catholic Church, there's something, if I'm not a Catholic, there's something deficient in me. I'm missing something. I'm missing out on something. It's the nature of the religious beast. You can't escape your nature as a religious organization. So, no, I'm not lying. I'm just pointing out the problem. Okay. This is where I have a disagreement with you. Your whole attitude is, I'm Catholic. I'm part of the true faith. Other people need to become Catholic. Why? Because then they can be part of the true faith, because they're not part of it now. Okay. That's just the nature of the beast. That's just an observation. Okay. So it's like, it doesn't matter what your Pope says. It's the nature of the religion that you're all in. Okay. That's just kind of the way it is. Okay. Because if I was still a Protestant minister, you would say I was a wayward Christian. Okay. I don't have the true faith. Okay. Now that I'm an atheist, I don't have any faith at all. And so I'm sure there's a special place in hell for me. So yeah. No, I don't really, I absolutely believe, because I used to be a Christian and I used to look down at people that weren't. It's like, I didn't intend to. I didn't see them as necessarily non-human, but I saw them as not having the true faith. As a Pentecostal, and Pentecostals believe they're the true faith with the full gospel. Okay. And everybody else has a partial gospel. It's the doctrine that causes you to believe that your doctrine is true and everybody else's is false. And so therefore they're deficient in something. That's just the nature of religion. It's not a thing. There's this inherent tribalism in religion that reinforces tribalism about it. It's a criticism. It's just the way it is. It doesn't matter if people don't follow it. And it doesn't matter if the nature of the beast, the nature of the religion speaks against it. I hate to break the news to you, but the Catholic Church is probably larger than the Pope. Okay. It's an organization that will outlast Pope Leo XIV. It's been around before Leo XIV, and it'll be around after him. The dogmas and doctrines of the church stand as superior, okay, to any length of any leader. Okay. And that's true of anything. So, well, but it's the nature of religion, though. The nature of your religion is, if you're not a Catholic, you're deficient in some way. And it's just the way it is. And this is where I have a problem with the Catholics. Okay. And I have a problem with any religion, because if you're not following that religion, you don't have the truth. And if you don't have the truth, you're deficient in truth. And that's just the nature of the beast. It doesn't matter whose attitude it is. It's just the nature of the religious beast. Whatever religion you're a part of says that this is the truth and the other parts are false. If they're false, then they're living a lie. So they're not as smart or they're not as truthful or whatever as you are, because you belong to the true faith. It doesn't matter what the leader says or anything. That's just the nature of religion. If I was a Mormon, I'd be destined for outer darkness. it doesn't matter what they say. Okay. It matters what the nature of the religion is. You're missing my point. Okay. You're still saying that you're the truth faith, which means everybody's a false faith. They're deficient, they're false, and you're true. Okay. It's just the nature of the beast. It doesn't matter what you do. Religion always has this aspect to it. So,
streets and among the poor. He advocated justice for workers and resolved conflicts peacefully. During the Peruvian floods of 2022, he put on boots and waded through the mud to help those in need himself. He used to personally drive food and blankets to remote villages and has advocated for the life and dignity of migrants.
okay. Now, here's the thing about this long list of all the good things that Pope Leo XIV did before he was the Pope. You could do all of those things and not have the gospel or religion. You could definitely do them all. It's just, that's kind of the way it is. Okay. And you don't need the religion to do all that. Okay. It helps to have an organization behind you because you can put together good efforts, but you don't need the gospel or any of that to do any of that. So, but I do applaud the man for his efforts. I do applaud the man that he spearheaded a lot of things that helped a lot of people. But so there's that. And so that's the issue. Okay. To me, is that make him woke? I don't know. I just think it makes him a good human being. Whether he's a good Catholic or not, anything to get the religion off the hook, huh? Well, when your religion enforces a nature of I'm better than because I have the truth than others who don't have the truth of what I have, then I would say that religion reinforces that negative nature. So, and it's kind of like that. So, if you're saying something deserves to go to hell because they don't have belief, but you deserve to go to heaven because you do, you are saying there's something missing in the other person. Okay. That's what the dogma of the church says. So that's kind of my point. So it doesn't mean whether you say it, but that's the dogma of your organization. And you have to believe that to be part of the organization. So I know, because I used to be an Assemblies of God boy and I had 16 fundamental truths that I had to believe in, or I was an Assemblies of God boy. And one of those was people that weren't saved were going to hell. So, and I was going to heaven. So I'm saying I found a way to heaven and they're poor pity them. Okay. So yes. All right.
Because he is woke, but because he is Catholic. As an American, he knows how American politics work. As a prelate of the church and someone who has ministered out of our American context for so long, he's also not defined by them. This may serve as the perfect combination for the world right now. Someone who can speak directly to...
Enforce what? That people are going to... I'm sorry, that's a dogma of the Catholic Church, that if you're not a Catholic, you're going to hell. Okay? Like, there's whole definitions of purgatory. Those things still exist. Okay? They still exist. It doesn't matter what you want or anybody else wants. The teachings of the church are still there. I haven't been Catholic, but the nature of religion is the same, regardless of whether you're Catholic, Pentecostal, Protestant, Episcopalian, doesn't matter. You have these dogmas that you have that are supposedly the truth from God, that the church is upholding as tradition, and you cannot escape them. It doesn't matter. If the current Pope decided to get rid of heaven and hell and throw all that away, he'd be immediately ostracized by most Catholics. Okay. Like there's something bigger there. So yeah, Catholic, sorry, I may not have been a Catholic, but Crank Elder God used to be a Catholic and he says, I'm right. Okay. So when did this change? When did this change? Give me the council of the church where they got rid of the idea that if you're not a Catholic, you're not part of the true church. Give it to me. I want to see it. Because I'm sorry, that would make the flipping news. Okay. The fact is, Catholics believe that you have to be a Catholic to be a part of the true church, and you have to be a Catholic to truly go to heaven. And everybody else who isn't a Catholic is reprobate. That is the nature of almost every Abrahamic religion I know of. So So is anybody going to heaven now? Is there an afterlife? So we're going to keep heaven because it's a nice thing, but we're going to get rid of hell because it's a mean thing. But you're still saying that you're the ones going to heaven. Well, so where are the reprobate going? The people that don't believe it. So what's the point of being Catholic at that point? Okay. I mean, it's like if everybody's going to heaven, then to hell with it, like hell with it all. I'm sorry, dude, I've read Vatican II. They never got rid of the whole hell heaven thing. That, I don't know what you're thinking about Vatican II, but nope. So, sorry. No, didn't happen.
The United States and the problems it is causing the rest of the world. Immediately after his election, old tweets were found of him criticizing the Trump administration's immigration policy, J.D. Vance's twisting of Thomas Aquinas to justify ignoring the needs of the world, and calling for justice for the unarmed black man, George Floyd, who was brutally killed by...
I'm sorry, where? How am I wrong? Okay, I'm sorry. I've got several people that have called their Catholic friends already and said that I'm right and you're wrong. Okay, I don't know where you're getting your ideas of what Vatican II did, but Vatican II still maintained a lot of the central core teachings of the church, which is you have to be a Catholic to go to heaven. Okay, or otherwise you're spending a whole lot of extra time in purgatory, or you're going to straight up go to hell. Okay, this has still been part of the thing. Okay, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but no, this is the doctrine of the church. Okay, I think so. Yeah, it'll try to return to its original form. Yeah, I mean, you can go to heaven without believing, then why bother believing? Why bother be a part of it? See, if you get rid of that, then there's no carrot and stick anymore to keep people in the faith. Like, why would you bother being Catholic at that point? Just go do what you want. Okay, what's the point? I mean, if you don't have a heaven and hell, geez, oh Pete, that's just, I don't know what to do then. So I don't understand. But yeah, I think by indulgences, get out. I'm sorry. Vatican II did not change the heaven and hell problem. Okay, it did not. I never read anything when I read Vatican II's final decision that said that went away. Okay, so I think you're making stuff up there.
Police in 2020. He tweeted these things, not because he is woke, but because he is Catholic. And finally, he's a bridge builder.
Or a decent human being, because a lot of people did all those things for the different reasons, and they weren't Catholic. Some of us were secularists that said similar things. So I don't think Catholicism is necessary here to be a decent human. So
his calm, moderate demeanor has made him a successful leader in both the Augustinian order and a bishop. He is said to be the type of person that thinks a lot before he speaks, being very careful with his words. This is not a man who will come with zingers or with the intention of beating an enemy. In his first remarks as Pope, he mentioned building bridges 3 times. His hope, not unlike Leo XIII, is to bring peace to the world. He recognizes the horrible acts of aggression in Gaza and Ukraine, the outbursts of violence between India and Pakistan, the constant threat looming all around the world, and he knows that now is the time for peace.
Okay, so I agree that Leo the 14th is probably taking the name Leo for those very reasons, because he is very much, it's kind of like when popes take those names, it's like there's a pope previous that they admire that has the same name, and I can see where Leo the 13th and would be admired by Leo the 14th for his diplomatic ways, his calm demeanor, very similar kind of attitude. Advocating for human rights and human dignity, I can absolutely see that. Building bridges, sure. Pope builds bridges, Trump builds towers. Maybe they can make a deal. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I want to bring peace to the world too. So can they make me Pope? I'd take the job. I don't know. It's the no sex thing that might. No, probably not. So, but yeah, the problem I'm having with Casey here is he's kind of equating this all with being Catholic, And I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think it's a Catholic thing. You can be a decent humanitarian and be secular, and a lot of decent human beings are secular. So yeah, so there's that. I don't remember if that's true. If he did do the Pope Mobile, the old Pope Mobile went to the Ukraine to help people on the battlefield. I mean, the Catholic Church has enough money they could like have bought several ambulances and sent them to the battlefield just the same, and that would actually be more effective. But yeah, it's a business. Hey, Kristen. Yeah, I had a guy on here arguing that the Catholic Church doesn't teach that people go to hell anymore. Since Vatican II, that they don't go to hell, and you don't need to be a Catholic to go to heaven anymore. Is that true? I just want to know. I'm having trouble buying that because I don't remember that ever being a part of Catholic doctrine. That would make them pretty universalist, and I know one thing for sure: the Catholics don't seem universalist to me. So. Any leader that helps bring peace between nations is doing, but that doesn't mean there's any God working behind the scene. Exactly. And I think that if Leo the 14th does broker peace deals and keeps the peace better, and he is very much like his predecessor, Leo the 13th in that regard, I'll applaud him. Like, I'm not down on the Pope. I realize there's always going to be a Pope, and that person's going to be the supreme power of the Catholic Church. I'm just very concerned about, don't shove this dogma down my neck kind of thing. That's kind of my thing. So, but I don't know that the Pope is woke. And Casey's going to make some remarks here that are definitely going to take him out of the woke camp. So, but I don't think it's woke necessarily to be a decent human being and have some empathy and show compassion, although there are certain people on the right that think so. I don't find that, I think I've been allowed to get rid of the religious like tribalism since becoming an atheist, and my tribe is now humanity, I guess. And so I don't, I really experienced this when I was a teacher in Texas because most of my kids were Hispanic, and I know what it feels to be like an outsider when you're trying to talk to people and you can't communicate very well, and you still have your human empathy for each other. I had every minority group in every white neighborhood around the country was represented, and the white people were the minority in my school. So it was a different way of feeling things, and I developed some human empathy where you don't look at color necessarily, you just look at human situations. And I think that's a better way to live. And any religious leader that'll tack onto that, I'll gladly say thanks for the good, but you don't need it to do it. So you just finished Fangs. Okay. Well, we're still going on. So far, woke is the product actually of the Black community until certain religious right people kind of co-opted, or right-leaning people co-opted it and made it into a slur. Pope Leo the 13th wasn't a bad guy, which is why Pope Leo the 14th decided to take his name. And Pope Leo the 14th has done a lot of humanitarian things and believes in humanity and believes in diplomacy. So far, those are the positives. The negative is Casey thinks it's all due to being Catholic. Yeah, timed out. Yeah, Viola's. I don't actually time people out, or that's my mods. You're timed out because you're making accusations. You're not backing them up. Okay. So I get it. But I don't time you out. My mods do that. So they're basically, but no, I'm sorry. I now literally have several people that have told me, both on the channel and otherwise, that no, if you're not a Catholic, you're still going to hell. So that kind of makes some decision. Mercy is emphasized nowadays. Even Catholic people go to hell. They've softened the language to make it seem nicer, but the threat is definitely still there. Okay. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, Kristen. I mean, I think you're a former Catholic, aren't you? I believe. you know, I also know that Cranky Elder God is a former Catholic, and I think I think several are Catholics. But yes, I don't think I don't think that that's gone away. You're in a particularly bad spot because you knew the truth and rejected it, like have a special spot in hell. Okay, all right, fair enough. No, he didn't get blocked for saying I was wrong. Probably somebody. There's two ways you get blocked around here. One is people feel like you're preaching, or you're making accusations about me without proving it. Like I'm trying to be nice to Pope Leo the 14th as an atheist, and I'm trying to actually be nice to Mr. Casey here because he has said some things that I would say, yeah, okay, broken clock is right twice a day, kind of stuff. And I don't have a problem with people being compassionate humanity, but when you say I'm wrong about some religious aspect that I know, like the Catholics still send people to hell. Sorry, they do. Not everybody's going to heaven. Okay. So I mean, as Christian says, they're trying to soften the language, but no, that's that. I mean, you could say I'm wrong. Proving I'm wrong is never there. From after so many years, lack of evidence and little bit of evidence for Christianity is bad evidence. So I studied the Bible. Here, a short breakdown. I was a Christian starting at age 8. Grew up in the Pentecostal church, baptized in the Holy Spirit at 13, called in the ministry at 17. Trinity Bible College, class of 1993. Asbury Theological Seminary, class of 1996. Became a pastor in the Assemblies of God, Christian education director, then senior pastor of 2 churches, and then left that organization and became a Congregationalist for almost 10 years. Had lots of emotional reasons to stay in the church, but the rationality and the intellectual honesty caught up with me that Christianity has no evidence. In fact, it's shaky whether Jesus existed. So, yeah, preaching usually gets you timed out. So, oh, you're not blocked. I've got a long list, and I'm also trying to keep us moving along with Mr. Casey here too. So, oh, okay. So, yeah, he's not talking out his ass. Okay, fair enough, Kristen. See, I'm just saying, like I don't remember them changing the doctrine that non-Catholics were going to heaven. I just don't remember them doing that. That would have made news. Okay, it would have made major, like, worldwide news. And no, you still have that. So, okay. Actually, Sean, also, my entire deconversion story is in a playlist of like 16 videos, something like that, 16 to 20. So if you want the full story, I've already done that. It took me about probably a quarter to a third of a year to do all that. So it's there. So there's that.
First Sunday message as Pope a few days ago, he made this his priority. Peace must be found. And not just the absence of war, but peace that is built on justice. He said these things, not because he is woke, but because he is Catholic. And that...
Or he's just a decent human being and happens to be Catholic. I don't think so. I'll let somebody else. Well, you got to prove empirically that sin exists, and it's not just found in some book that says so. So, I mean, I get the con, I get the oil salesman, the snake oil salesman line all the time, but free will doesn't solve the problem. So there's that.
Is the resounding point through it all. This is a Catholic man, meaning that he is going to be on the side of the poor. He is going to advocate for peace, welcome the stranger, and treat everyone with dignity.
And you can do that without being a Catholic. Okay, you can do all of that without. I'm not relying on myself anymore. There's been several people that have gotten into chat with you and pointed out that you're wrong as a Catholic, and they used to be former Catholics. So I rely on my chat people because I have a lot of former about everything in my chat. Like I have former Catholics, former Episcopalians. I'm a former Pentecostal, former Congregationalist. Like there's every flavor of Christianity at some point represented in my chat at points. And yeah, we know that from our experiences in Christianity, every single one of them has some sort of doctrine where there's some sort of gatekeeping of how you get into heaven, and everybody else doesn't go. Like at least I can give the JWs credit that if you don't make it in through their gatekeeping, you just get annihilated. But that's not true of the Catholic faith. I'm sorry. I think you need to study it. Sure. I don't know. The government forces me to do shit all the time, but yeah. But as far as it's just my choice, well, then God's really lousy at persuading, isn't he? He kind of sucks at it. Omniscient, I'm not powerful God, but he can't persuade me. And he would know, being omniscient, what would persuade me to be a believer again, but he doesn't do it. So kind of jokes on him. Free will or not, you could have that. Yeah, former Presbyterian, Wiccan. I'm not lying, dude. Yeah, this is my point to you, Viola. I'm not lying to you. I'm just telling you what I know about the Catholic Church, and it's being backed up by other people who used to teach Catholic doctrine. Okay. I'm not making this stuff up off the top of my head. It's like, I know that Abrahamic religions have this majorly gatekeeping about who is this remnant that gets to go on into eternity with Jesus or Allah or Muhammad or whatever. It's like there's always this carrot and stick method with almost every Abrahamic religion that I know of. And even to a certain extent, I think, I don't know Hinduism well as I'd like to, but I think there's a lot of carrot and stick to it too. So, but yeah. Yes, Chat GPT always gives you the answer that you want because it's talking to you. The problem I have with Chat GPT is that it's kind of a yes man. Like you could take Chat GPT, go to Fallout New Vegas, and put it as yes man, it would come out the same. So I'm just saying it.
He is a man awake to the surroundings of this world and has an open heart to all those in need. When did having empathy become a threat to people?
Valid point. When did having empathy become a threat to people? Yeah, I don't understand that one either. When Elon Musk said what he did about empathy and compassion, I'm like, what the literal hell, dude? I just don't. So once again, broken clock, wrong, right again. But it's like, I don't understand how having empathy or compassion makes you woke. I've never understood that. I think that's just being basically human. Yeah. Either do that or don't get treatment. Yes. Okay. Yeah. See, Kristen knows because Kristen used to be a Catholic, so she knows the games you play. It's nice word games. Yes, there's definitely a control aspect of Abrahamic religions. I am also not sure that Eve had any free will either in the story. I mean, what choice did they really have? Yeah, that's not a choice. Sign or die. That's not a choice. Yes. And it's kind of the same way with the religions, with God here, either serve me, be my sycophant, or die. That's kind of the Abrahamic God's motif. I mean, Yahweh's kind of like an asshole like that, like serve me or I'll kill you, one way or the other. And the fun will really begin when you get to eternity and I burn you forever. Yeah. So, yeah. Mary free will. Valid question. Valid question.
When did wanting justice for everyone become Marxism? These are Christian values. This is what Jesus advocated.
I don't know how you claim that this is an American.
Whoa. Got off of that.
It calls for justice in with wild and made-up fears of the.
Okay, so like, once again, you don't have to be Catholic or Christian to have those values. You just have to be a decent human being. The religion isn't necessary for it. So, yeah.
Alt-right is really, really awful. The new pope is not going to change church teaching on gay marriage.
Okay, here's where we're going to get to where he's going to tell us what the church is not going to change. Okay, and he's already done the first one. The church is not going to change on gay marriage. They're still not going to perform weddings for gay couples. Not going to happen. So there's that. What else is he not going to change, Casey? Let's hear the list.
He's also not going to promote abortions, ordain women to the priesthood, or support sex change operations.
Okay, so not going to support abortions, still not going to support women in the priesthood, and still not going to support sex change operations. So how is that woke? According to, so, I need to check my messages. Okay. I'm assuming something. Oh, I see what you did there. Hold on, folks. You're going to love this one. But yes, so the Pope isn't going to change the essential doctrines of the church on these subjects. So big surprise. But yeah, not. Where did I put you? Oh, there it is. There we go. There's the other image that has just been recently finished by a wonderful, lovely I Killed Earl dealing with the Catholic Pope. Oh, there you go. There's our lovely mascot Fangs, the demigod rabbit. Once again, looking forward to removing the religious corruption from vegetables, marinara sauce, whatever it needs to be removed. So, so there's that. So thanks for that. Oh, and I'm kind of overdue for a hat reveal here too. But yes, I think I'm going to end there with Father Casey because he doesn't need to make any more points. The problem I have with him at that point is he's basically admitting that the Catholic Church isn't going to change on essential, like, liberal issues, like equality for women in the priesthood, not going to happen. Women's choice about what to do with their own bodies, not going to happen. The person's right to transition their sex if they feel it following their right to be happy and their own liberty, not going to happen. Basically, inalienable rights are kind of off the table with certain Catholic doctrines, so that's not going to change. So there, yeah, yes, the other one's, yeah, I put the other one in as an emoji, Earl. I don't know, it's a little too light. I think it needs to be a little bit darker in some way, but other than that, I think it's great. So, but yeah. So there's that aspect of it, and we're still not going to allow gay people to be married. So who you love still matters. You don't have a choice about that. So, yeah. So. Yes, the tomato pope is an emoji, and I also there we go. I kind of liked it. Although I do have a suggestion for another piece that you could take the two and put them together. Like you could have, like, over the shoulder of this Pope, you could have Fangs with his teeth about to sink into the tomato. I think that would be awesome. Yeah, well, this is how he's a trickster. Yeah, it's great. It is. It's love it. I love it. Well, that doesn't apply to me at all. I used to use that verse, by the way, Sean, when I preached, and to justify my preaching. And here's the thing: all of that is assertion. There's no evidence for any of that. It's all assertion. So, yeah, I think maybe putting it on a dark background might help. You may have to change the outlining a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of light. For those of you who like using a light background, it doesn't show up as well. I use a dark background, so it helps me differentiate. So there's that. Yeah, they encourage empathy, but at the same time, some of the rules, it's like it's selective empathy at that point. Like if you're looking at a woman and saying, okay, you're equal, but you can't fill any leadership roles. Like there's never going to be a female cardinal or a female pope or a female bishop or a female priest. You're saying that the leadership roles can't be filled by a woman. So you believe in equality for all humanity, but okay, the moment you throw the but in there, I have a problem. Okay. Women are the ones that give birth. I don't have a uterus, so it's really none of my business what a woman does with hers. It's her liberty, her life that's issue, her happiness. The same is true for gay marriage and trans. It's like, if I'm going to maintain as a libertarian the ideas of inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness on those alone, I'm not going to get in the way of trans or any LGBTQ person from expressing what they want to do. Okay, that's not my business. But the Catholic Church will come along and say, well, we believe in all those things too, but, and that's where the but comes in. So I just love to do it in pieces. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it is. And so is a good chunk of the Bible, by the way, just so you know. And I would say that as somebody with a degree in biblical studies and a master's degree in theology. The Bible's a large chunk of it is fiction. So, and I would say those politicians are wrong. This is why we have fights about these things. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but this is where secularism and religion kind of butt heads, because as a secularist, I can maintain rights. As somebody who believes in God, there are no rights before God either. Forget the politicians voting to take them away. You're a monotheistic God doesn't really grant rights. Okay, so special indulgences are your favorite? I know, that's fair. But yeah, it's don't get me wrong, I used to preach from Romans, and I probably preached that passage 20, 30 times. But now I look at it and it's like, that's true of every religion. If nobody would ever buy the faith of religion if somebody didn't peddle it. Yeah, so you got to. Well, they might. I know, for instance, that there's a religion based on the Star Wars idea of the two sides of the Force. So, but yeah. So, in honor of the new Pope, and actually more in honor of my own country, because I still love the people of my country. And this hat also, I have to explain before I put it on, that it is also, I was thinking in the store when I was looking at it, I'm going on vacation with all my kids this summer at some point, and this is the kind of hat that an older father should wear to embarrass their children, and I might take it on that. So for the hat reveal, which you guys have earned, thank you very much for everybody. I decided, I saw this in my store where I work, and I had to do it. I had to actually do it. This one. I think this is going to be great. I think at this point, I'm probably spoiling how good the tomato looks. So I don't think that's an assumption, Michael. I know Sean is kind of accusing you of making that assumption. No, it's not an assumption. The thing with Jesus is a lot of things are not verified with any other source. So if it wasn't the Gospels telling us it, we wouldn't know it. And they're all written by Christians. So Holy American. Yeah, because I'm picturing myself sitting by the pool with all my kids and embarrassing the snot out of them. So, okay. I used to pray for people too. I now recognize it for what it is. I went before God and prayed on somebody else's behalf. That's nice ego stroking. I'm ready to be American so we can enjoy it more. I loved it as soon as I saw it. It's one of the few hats I really loved. Jesus is very much like Harry Potter to me until you get some better information. I hadn't thought of that, but now that you mention it, and that makes it even better. Oh man, but yeah, boy, yeah. I'm enjoying the hat reveals, and you guys being my financial support has been really great too. So thank you, everybody. I don't know. I don't consider the Pope woke. Because of the way the video ended. Like I wouldn't consider somebody woke who, gay marriage isn't a thing and trans isn't a thing. And, these are things the Catholic Church still teaches against, and the Pope is going to maintain them. He's going to still take a very pro-life, anti-contraceptive stance. He's still going to, keep women out of the priesthood. So I don't see that as being very woke. Okay. But showing human compassion, I get it. And being nice to people. So there's that. I spent my whole life looking for that better information, by the way, Sean. It doesn't exist. Empathy for yourself and others. Oh, thanks, Sean. I mean, I've had theists come around here, and as long as they don't preach at me and actually want to have a discussion about their faith, I'll be glad to kick you off that hill. But I'll do it gently. I mean, I know people come here and they expect me to be foaming at the mouth and all that crap. And the only thing that really foams at the mouth around here is Fangs, and he doesn't do it very often. And he only bites vegetables, so not a big deal like the tomato Pope here, but yeah, the marinara sauce. This is another one of the emojis. It's one of my favorites because the carrot is actually the only pure vegetable. So that's why it's crying out in protest to Fangs. But then we also had this one, which is still my favorite, the Mormonians. I love Fangs in that one. On a full moon. Oh, yeah. It's funny how over the course of my life, Michael, I have changed my likes in horror. I used to love vampire stories and stuff like that. Everything except the Twilight series. I thought Twilight would have had a better ending if Blade had showed up. So there's that. And then you also have, all the other stuff that was there with that. But now I actually kind of enjoy the werewolf stories, the real ones that are like that sort of thing. So me on a full moon, that might be valid. Yeah, I am. Let me see Ed Rabyd, the rabid atheist, down in the bottom corner. So That's my full name. The Rabyd part is a play on my last name, and the rabbit atheist is Fangs. He's our resident mascot deity. So I illustrate a lot of points about religion using fangs. So, but yes, he's the rabbit atheist, which closed captioning used to and still does translate that wrong, rabid. So, well, the only reason, Brandon, that I can see that the Pope would be considered woke is he has compassion for his fellow human beings. He wants peace in our time and a few other things, but he's not going to qualify as woke because he's still not going to change the teachings on LGBTQ, marriages, women still are going to be forced to have babies, not use contraception and all that jazz. So he's not very woke in that sense. So he's he's still anti-women, trans, LGBTQ. He's not really all that woke in that sense. So I think the assessment that he's woke is probably false, but at the same time, I still have problems with a lot of Catholic dogma. So see if that looks better. Oh, you got me okay. Here, let me, there we go. Let's see. I gotta change the, and let's see. I gotta pull up the old thing and we'll see if we can change the emoji to the darker one. Just a second, folks. I want to test this out before I sign off. I'm going to see if you guys like it better. There we go. Save and publish. All right. So, can somebody, I don't know, my YouTube is locking up a little bit. So can somebody try, see if the emoji has changed. I think I have to, oh, there it is. I killed Earl, put it up. Yeah, I mean, you can see it's a tomato and it's the Pope a little bit better. I think I like that one. Good to meet you too, Sean. Just, my mods are the ones that do all the protecting of me. I'm too autistic to be mean, I think. So that's part of my problem is I don't like to take action against people. My empathy gets in the way. That I don't express very well. Yeah. I mean, you're more than welcome to come by. I have several theists and former theists. There's actually a theist in the group that is no longer a theist because they kept coming here. Yeah. And then Earl's too autistic to be nice. I'm too autistic to be mean. Yes, the tomato pope. Yes, tomato pope. So we have the tomato pope emoji. So that's good. I'm going to put it in here. There we go. That's the new emoji with the darker so you can actually see the stuff. So yes, there's the tomato pope. So there's more stuff coming. I know Earl's been busy and she will, when she feels good about stuff, she will send it to me and we'll have a few. I do have to say though, we've dropped down in membership a little bit. So probably a lot of those gifted memberships disappeared. So I can't do any more emojis than this at the present. I need like 5 more memberships to do that. So there's that. So, but thanks everybody for stopping by. It's been a great evening. I don't think that we determined that the Pope was woke. I would say he's just a compassionate human that happens to be the head of an organization still living in the past and enforces some really bad ideas. So I know we had a discussion with whether they still send people to hell or not, but I think we kind of confirmed. So there's that. Well, there we go. Thank you, Earl. I think that, oh, now I know some people were here. Thank you for the memberships. Ronald at Indian Lake is a member. Lieutenant Jedi, Bridge of the Divide, Hurricane Perro, and Mr. Peabody. It's good to see you, Mr. Peabody. I haven't seen you in a while. So thanks for stopping by. See, I know people lurk. But yeah, I do have to run. I don't have to go to work, but I'm overdue for cleaning my apartment and getting some other things done. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. You guys are awesome. And I thank everybody for stopping by today. It was a good little time to have it. I don't know if we figured anything out with the Pope, but I guess we'll see in the future. He's 69, so he might be a 20-year Pope, might be a 3-year Pope. It really depends on how his health goes. So we'll see. But thanks for stopping by. As always, I appreciate all of you. May the blessing of fangs come upon you. May your teeth always be pointy, so that you can remove the corruption of religion from your vegetables vicariously. And may he always guide your path. Nom nom and all of that stuff. He nibbled for our sins, so always remember that. I also want to say, as usual, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. And so you want to take all your time, your money, your opportunities, and use them to further yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. And don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith. That's a dead end. I speak from experience. So yes, blessed be fangs. He nibble for sharp pointy teeth and deliver us from corrupt vegetables. May you forever nibble on your heart and grant you everlasting whiskers or wisdom. Yes. Yes. And make sure you hit the like button on the way out and subscribe to our benefit. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you did too. So thank you, everybody. And as always, thanks for stopping by, guys. And I will catch you all next time.